Welcome to this short presentation on how the COVID-19 pandemic affected to aggregate demand and aggregate supply.
Malaysia is reimposing a full lockdown on Kuala Lumpur and 5 states to curb a third wave of COVID-19. The 2-week lockdown begins on Wednesday.
Our healthcare system is at a breaking point dan saya ingin jelaskan realiti situasi sistem kesihatan yang sedang kita hadapi sekarang. Stay at home.
The pandemic created a major economic shock worldwide, and understanding its impact help us see why economics experience recession, unemployment, and inflationary pressure.
What is aggregate demand? Aggregate demand is the total amount of goods and services that consumers are willing to purchase in an economy and during a certain period of time. Aggregate demands consist of 5 components, and first is the consumptions, investment, government spending, export, and imports. So now I'll explain on consumption, and consumption is the largest components among the 5 components, as it is because household and individuals spend barely on the goods and services. However, during 2020, pandemic of COVID-19, it has caused private consumption to decrease by 1.4%, which is from 2019 it had achieved 8.1% and it dropped to 6.7% in 2020. And the movement control order on retail, leisure, and consumption of durable goods and services to decrease. So as the consumption decreased due to the pandemic of COVID-19, it has shifted the curve of aggregate demand to the left, and the quantity demands will decrease and the price will also to decrease. So next we'll move on to the investment. So investment is the spending on business capital and services such as machinery, equipment, transportation, and also residential structures. So for the latest example, in 2025, government has invested on the first RTS train that set connecting Johor Bahru and Woodlands North Station in Singapore. The project has reached 65% and the train will operate at 12th of December in 2025. So as the investment increase, it will cause the aggregate demand curve to shift to the right, and it will cause higher employment and economic growth faster.
Now, what does G mean in the aggregate demand? G is the total government expenditures on goods and services within the economy. According to the International Monetary Fund, the Malaysian government rolled out multiple stimulus and assistance packages totaling around 305 billion between 2020 and 2021. These packages included cash transfers to households, wage subsidies, tax relief, grant businesses, especially SMEs, and increased healthcare spending. To give a real-life example, under the package Prihatin, many low-income households and vulnerable groups received direct cash aid. The support helped people pay for necessities even when businesses were closed and incomes were lost. Now let's look at the effect on aggregate demand. With G rising sharply, money continued circulating, households could still spend, businesses got some breathing room, public health and infrastructure kept going. Let's look at trade and next export. In Malaysia, COVID-19 disrupted global demand and international trade. Some exports dropped as global supply chains broke and foreign demand fell. According to a report by the National Statistics Department, during the early pandemic periods, many industries saw negative growth. However, interestingly, by June 2020, Malaysia recorded a rebound in exports. Exports grew by 8.8% to Rm 82.9 billion. The combined impact of how G and X-M work together. During the worst of the pandemic, private consumption and investment dropped sharply. Exports fell, imports were constrained, so net exports were under pressure. But Malaysia's strong fiscal response, large G, provided a cushion. Cash support, wage subsidies, business aid, and public spending maintained internal demand. Meanwhile, once export sectors recovered as global demand resumed, net exports began contributing positively again, helping the economy bounce back. These are all data found according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia. This combination prevented the economy from total collapse and laid a foundation for gradual recovery.
So what does it mean by aggregate supply? So aggregate supply means that the total quantity of goods and services that all firms in an economy are willing and able to produce at the different overall price levels in a given period. If you take a look, there are two types of supply in macroeconomics. It's divided into two, which is short-run aggregate supply and a long-run aggregate supply. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic produced a negative supply shock for Malaysia's agriculture sectors. Movement restrictions and the Movement Control Order, also known as MCO, disrupted the harvesting, processing, and also transport, while foreign labours shortages, and this causes that plant closures, which causes the reduce in production capacity. In consequences, this causes a real output to fall and supply chains to decrease because of the disruption in input. Empirical data from 2020 shows that declines in production and self-sufficiency for several commodities, which contributes to higher food prices. According to the Department of Science in Malaysia, DOSM, in 2020, many agricultural and fishery products saw a decline in production compared to the previous year, which is 2019. These declines affects almost 23 agricultural items, including fruits, vegetables, and plantation, and also fish, plus livestock.
How COVID-19 affected aggregate supply. First, labor supply disruption. One of the biggest impact of COVID-19 was the sudden reduction in labor supply. Lockdowns and movement restrictions mean that workers simply could not go to their workplace. Many industries, from manufacturing to construction, were forced to operate with limited staff, and some factories had to stop production entirely. In addition, rising inflation rates create health risks that made it unsafe for employees to work in crowded environments. Because of this, production slowed down dramatically and the overall output of the economy decreased. Lastly, increased production costs. COVID-19 also caused the production costs to rise. Business had to implement strict health procedures, including frequent sanitizing of equipment, temperature checks, social distancing, and providing face masks or protective gear for workers. To reduce the risk of infections, many companies limited the number of workers allowed on each shift. While these measures were necessary, they reduced productivity and increased operating expense. Higher costs mean that firms could not produce as efficiently as before. This contributes further to the decline in aggregate supply.
When both aggregate demand and aggregate supply shift left, the economy experienced low GDP, higher unemployment, and price instability, which is some goods become more expensive due to shortage. This combination of reduced demand and reduced supply caused a global economic slowdown. So in summary, COVID-19 caused a major shock to both aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Lockdowns, uncontrolled supply chain distributions, and falling customer confidence all contributed to the economic downturn. Understanding these effects help us learn how governments and businesses can prepare for future crises.